What up, guys? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm Matt White, and today I'm going to give you my thoughts on the new horror film called Saw X, which is the latest installment of the franchise. The story is supposed to be taking place on the timeline between the first movie and the second film. I went back and rewatched all the Saw films, including the spinoff film called Spiral with Chris Rock. Looking back on that film, even though I was never the biggest fan of the Saw franchise, I felt like it was just a cash grab horror sequel after another. But looking back on the first movie that was directed by James Wan, I thought it was fantastic. I love the plot twist. I love the concept. Tony Bell, who gives an incredible performance, who is playing John Kramer, who is the Jigsaw killer. He goes after the victims who have done terrible things, especially the ones that did terrible things from John, and he gives them a chance to play the game of survival. And if they fail the game and they fail the test, they die. He doesn't kill them. The victims do it themselves. They go through some crazy torture that he can think of, and he's very creative at doing so because he's an architecture. If you know his backstory, you know that he's an architecture. He's a very intellectual guy. He's always 10 steps ahead, and he always has a backup plan. In every installment of the Saw franchise, it will always leave you a big plot twist that you didn't see coming, and it will leave you on a cliffhanger, and it gives you reason to keep watching the Saw movies. It did so for me because even though I thought that the sequels were a big of a hit and miss, I still wanted to know how this is all going to play out, and I wanted to see what's going to happen next to the victims that just left us hanging. I thought that Spiral was actually a better film than I thought it would. It's not a great movie by any means. I thought it had some moments that were good, and there was moments that were kind of a little iffy, and it felt very mixed. But it was a mid movie at its best, and I was nervous when they were going to do another Saw movie, and I was like, why are you doing this? It feels like this is going to be another cash grab that they can throw at us. But you know what? I went in with an open mind because the reviews have been very positive. People are saying that this is probably their second favorite of the franchise. And after coming out of Saw X, I will say this is actually great. Did not feel like it was a cash grab. It felt like they put more heart into it. And the man who directed the film did a lot of the editing throughout the Saw franchise. I thought he did a really damn good job directing the film. This is probably my favorite of the franchise. Now, the story is supposed to be taking place between 1 and 2. We see John Kramer being diagnosed with cancer, and he has a tumor in his brain, and he's trying to find a way to be cured from cancer. And he found out that there's a doctor that can help him, and they take him to Mexico to get the treatment he need, just like the other people that were diagnosed with different types of cancer that got cured. But then later he finds out that he was being conned by a bunch of con artists. They screwed him over. They did not take the tumor out of his brain. So he goes after the people that were responsible, and he puts them in the middle of a survival game through a big torture, gives them a chance to live, and hopefully that they can redeem themselves. Because that's what Jigsaw does. He doesn't go after killing people. He doesn't make this as a retribution. And this is a quote that was in the trailer. It's not a retribution, it's reawakening. He doesn't kill his victims. The victims do it themselves. They have a chance, whether they wanted to do whatever it takes to survive or just let themselves die. And that's what John Kramer does. He's a mastermind. And I thought they did a great job of focusing more on John Kramer's character this time around. Because throughout the franchise, you don't see a lot of him because he's mostly in the background. And they show you the big reveal in the third act, and that's mostly it. But this one, it goes back to the basics of why the first movie was so good. It didn't have to rely on crazy torture porn and all the goriness, even though this film is very graphic and bloody and gory, and the body counts are very extreme, but it doesn't go too over the top where it just pulls you out of the movie. And you really just don't root for the victims this time around. They're really shitty. Some of them have just done some stupid, dumb, bad things, but some of them are pretty shitty that they're very irredeemable at this point, and you don't want to root for them. You're rooting for John Kramer, and I love that he gets a lot more focus on this movie, which they should have done from the start, in my opinion. I thought it was a big mistake to not show a lot of them throughout the sequels, and I won't spoil any of the sequels that came after like the first movie. And I feel like that this felt like a self-contained story. It didn't look like that you really have to watch the other movies to know what's going on, but you will definitely have a much more deeper appreciation if you watch at least the first movie and then see what happens after Saw X with 2, 3, 4, and 5, and so on. This is like I said, this is easily my favorite Saw movie. It gave us back to why the first movie was so good. It was a basic. They didn't rely on the crazy over the top gory with every time we see a bunch of traps that they're set in. And I would recommend seeing this in the theater. I know this is going to get a digital release this Friday, and most of you are probably going to skip the theater. And I get it because this movie didn't last very long and it didn't perform well at the box office. But I would be open if they want to keep continuing to do more. If they wanted to have a time period where we still see John Kramer's character before we see where this is going to go after. This is definitely one of the better films I've seen all year. I won't say this is in my top 5 or top 10 favorite movies of the year. It's not up there. And I recommend you should see this in the theater with a group of people. If you're someone who is a big fan of the Saw franchise, and you might have liked them all, I mean, I personally did not like them all, but even if you're someone who wasn't never like the biggest fan of the franchise, I will say that you will enjoy Saw X a lot more. It's a better film. It's worth the watch. Now, what did you think of Saw X? Did you really like this movie, or do you disagree and you thought it was not that good and it wasn't made for you? And I would love to hear your thoughts. Just jump down in the comment section below and just give me your opinion. I would really love to hear it. And if you want to follow my social media platforms, the link tree will be down in the description down below where you will find my platform on there. And I would really appreciate you go subscribe to my channel for more videos to come. I would really appreciate you boost those numbers. I would appreciate your support. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. I would really appreciate it. And I hope you guys have a great day, great evening, wherever you're from. And I hope you guys stay safe and take care.